Look, I'd like to welcome everybody today. This is a smaller party than we normally have. And sometimes we have about 80 or 100 people in here. But you are the true believers. And we're so pleased we're having this function, Gaz, to coordinate with the Playwrights Award, the Rodney Seaborn Playwrights Award. And I think that we should recognise not only the Indigenous representatives, but I think we should also acknowledge Rodney behind them.
Yeah.
Because if it weren't for Rodney, we wouldn't be here. And I think we particularly want to welcome today the President of the Griffin Theatre Company, Bruce Marr. And Lyndall, Nick, and Lenore and Graham, directors and Nick Reed, members of the Griffin board. There's some exciting things that are happening in our relationship with Griffin and the Stokers Theatre. We won't tell you right now, but get ready for it next year. Now, none of us could have imagined what an extraordinary year this would have been. But we're through it, and big things are going to happen next year. And I'd like, at the beginning of this afternoon, to thank Carol Martin for all the work she's done. Carol, and also Adam Smith is not here, he's up the Central Coast. And I'd also like to acknowledge the work done by the Honorary Public Relations Consultant and Historian, Dr. Carol Murray. I think because you're the true believers, and you are what I call the lifeblood of the organisation. My fellow directors, like Michael Diamond and John Quincasson here, but there are people here today like Merrill, who did the decoration, Beres, who's one of our volunteers, and Caroline Mackey. Where's Caroline? Come down the front, Caroline, please. Caroline has worked with us since the days of independence. She's always there. Come and take a seat. We're always working. Sit down and relax. So I'm going to acknowledge all these people who work for the foundation. Thank you, Caroline. These people who work for the foundation, and we're going to hear today two international singers. Now we normally have very important entertainment for a function like this, and we're fortunate today. I'll introduce them later on, but two very, very important singers. Amelia Ferrugia, who you might recall sang when the Pope was here, international performer. New York. Who's going to be playing for us. So these people are the lifeblood of the organisation, and I want to also thank Terence Clark. Well, you have to probably thank him too, Jane, but Terence has done a hell of a job in the Playwrights Award and with the support of the foundation. Johnny Jewell, who's always here. You ooze happiness and joy and goodwill. Thank you so much. And also, I've been to Merrill McCallum, Susan Miles, one of our archivists, and Danny, who works with Carol Garrison. So anyway, thanks everybody for coming. And when Rodney passed away in 2008, you asked me when Rodney died, it was 2008. He left us with a very important mission, and I think Rodney was probably ahead of his time with the importance of preserving the stories of theatre. And also, Rodney, being a psychiatrist, had a great interest in mental health. And that's one of the reasons why the foundation, this foundation, has been able this year to make us, and last year, to make a substantial donation to the Actors Benevolent Fund. It's there are any people in our community who need help and support, financial, moral, actors and people in the profession. So we've given a large amount of money, and we want to continue that support. And Camilla Roundtree she'll be here in a minute, I'm sure, with the ABF, or Glenn Hazeldine, to thank us for what we've done. But also the fact that the Griffin is a very important part of our family. It was through the stables that this foundation was formed, right, to preserve that theatre. And so, as I was saying earlier today, there's some exciting things that are going to happen next year. And you'll be pleased to know that, and it's never been done before, that John Sensuk, who wrote the book, Griffin Rising, and Susan Mills, who you met here today, are writing a book now about Rodney. It hasn't been done before. And he was a remarkable man for what he did, because he believed that we should record the history of the theatre with the archives, the most valuable collection of archival material in the world, probably Australia, upstairs. And we're getting phone calls from all around the world, Australia, people looking through the archives. Secondly, that we are actually supporting theatre by getting, if you don't mind saying, bums on seats. Right? And Carol has done a phenomenal job. I can't believe the number of people in our foundation, which are 700 or 800, who are wanting to go to different shows, because Carol always gets very good seats. So we're supporting the theatre world. And finally, the money we've given over $1.5 billion, this foundation made available over the years to the profession. And they did, because to tell you, at the ABF they're telling me the people who are lining up for food vouchers, actors who wanted food vouchers during this COVID problem. So I'm now going to ask Amelia, Faruja, and Donna if they wouldn't mind coming forward and letting us hear some most beautiful music. And I'll now ask you to welcome Amelia Faruja and Donna Johnson. Come on.
not to sit on the front row. It's such a joy to be here today, and especially with this amazing woman on the piano, Miss Donna Bolson. I personally feel deeply indebted to the let me get this right, the Seaborn, Broughton and Walford Foundation, which I often call SBW. It's wonderful to be here, and what a blessing too. This incredible, past 2 years have been so difficult. And I have to thank personally Carolyn and Peter Lowry for being so extremely generous, and the board, for enabling me to stay in here and teach at this extraordinarily difficult time. I think I'm echoing the words that Donna may speak later, but it has been wonderful to continue teaching in here via Zoom. So using this amazing grand piano and being online with all of the students, both those at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music and also my business, Sydney Sings. So I owe the Seaborn, Broughton, Walford Foundation so much because it's kept my business alive, and I wouldn't be here without that. So also want to thank Carol Martin for the amazing organisational administration affairs. Really incredible the way you keep everything on track, so thank you so much. Looking after our diary, our calendar, and it's busy, isn't it, Donna? It's backwards and forwards to Carol, and thank you so much for that. Donna is a real gift. I mean, she has been working in New York for a couple of decades, and it's an enormous privilege to be accompanied by someone of her calibre. And the students here, the opera students at the Conservatorium, are very lucky to have her in the country and to have her as a coach, a vocal coach. So I feel very lucky to know her and to be playing with her today. I have to thank, on behalf of everyone, the volunteers, of course, of this amazing foundation. And I love what you said before, Peter, that the foundation is preserving the stories of the theatre. I haven't looked at it that way, but it's fantastic because, you know, you look around and you see all those programs there and the puppets back there and the Australian opera sets back there, and you just think, oh my goodness, all of this heritage and history that would be lost. So it really is a special place. In advance, I'd like to congratulate the winner of the Playwrights Award? Yep, so whoever that is, congratulations. That'll be coming soon. So we thought that we might do Silent Night together. Donna's also an amazing singer, so we'll do that one. If you want to hum along, please feel free. And then we will be doing the Come All You Faithful, which of course we invite you to sing with us. And we might have a little bit of a jingle bell at the end, just for fun.
I might just say a couple of words as well.
Yeah.
Maybe do I need the microphone?
No. Well, maybe for the that's what I was saying.
So, look, just a really quick story. I returned from a couple of decades or more overseas. I was in Germany and then in New York. I returned to take up the managership and chief coach position at the Australian Opera Young Artist Program, and then during COVID that position disappeared. So I reached out to Amelia. I had people from the opera company coaching with me, wanting to coach with me still, but I no longer had use of the building. And Amelia very kindly introduced me to Carolyn and Peter. And Carolyn brought me into this beautiful place. There's a grand piano in it. It's a big place. I have to say that I have a lot of students from Opera Australia as well as at the con, and they have said to me that this is like a safe place. It's a haven. I have a student who, and all these books, I came in and saw a book by Hayes Gordon, who was a teacher of mine, and they're fantastic books. I could really spend all my time reading. I had a student who's also a drag performer, and he immediately saw that there's a shelf of books on drag. There's all the books you could imagine about a theatre here, and I'm so grateful to be here, and they've opened their hearts and their doors to us, even though we're not in the theatre but in music, and the Seaborn reach just gets wider. So thanks so much.
Silent night. must know them. Ever sing along with us?
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, over the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
We'd like to accept this small gift from you.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, thank you so
All this
much.
and flowers.
That's beautiful.
Now, it gives me the pleasure to call to the microphone the president of the Griffin Theatre Company, Bruce Marr.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for the very warm welcome that we always get when we come to the SBW offices. It is a truly remarkable edifice, and not so long ago that I actually had the first time when I properly got into the back there and saw some of the stuff, and it's just utterly fascinating. And one of the things that I would like to do in some of the work we're talking to SBW about is to create some opportunities maybe for some of the puppets or the sets or other things to find an exhibition space potentially over at Griffin occasionally, so that more of the world can see some of the extraordinary things. But look, I'll be quite brief. I just first up, you know, a number of my colleagues from the Griffin board are here. We are very conscious of the great privilege we have of being the current custodians of that little theatre that Rodney, in cahoots with Penny Cook and a bunch of other people, rescued all that time ago. And it's been an amazing place ever since. It's had its ups and it's had its downs. I'm pretty confident it's not up at the moment. And one of the reasons for that, of course, is the support that we've received. One of the things I've been very proud about in the last couple of years, because it's been very, as Peter said, very difficult for performers, very difficult for our staff. You know, they live to put on shows. We've done a lot in the last couple of years to support artists. We've kept where we had performers contracted, we honoured their contracts. We commissioned a whole lot of new plays from new playwrights, and that was because we had great support from our donors, from our audiences. Audiences donated the tickets, they didn't ask for refunds. Donors stepped up and gave more money. But underlying all of that, no one has been a bigger supporter for us than the SBW Foundation over the years, and we're very, very conscious of that and very, very grateful. I'll just say two more things. One is that I'm just calling out, because we're about to have the Playwright Awards, if you have a look in your brochure, you'll notice that one of the plays is White Fella Yellow Tree, and that is by a playwright called Dylan Vandenberg, and he was a previous winner of the Seaborn Prize. And again, it's that sort of philanthropic endeavours that help people like playwrights. Playwrights do not earn a lot of money, but if they can get some, one-off cash, whether it's because of the Seaborn Prize, the Griffin Award, the Lysicrides Prize, or any other things, it just makes such a huge difference to them in the ability to sustain themselves and to sustain their craft. And then the last thing I'll mention, which some of you may know, Griffin, as I say, Griffin is a tiny little theatre in many respects. But this year, we were asked to join what's now called the National Performing, I can't remember. Anyway, what used to be called the Major Performing Arts Companies, that's what we call it, by the Australia Council and all the state governments. They've acknowledged us. And that means that we are counted alongside the Sydney Theatre Company, Opera Australia, Melbourne Theatre Company. So, that tiny little theatre but because of its dedication to giving voice to new Australian playwrights, to challenging and to pushing the boundaries of performance, has been given that sort of acknowledgement, which gives us, amongst other things, a much more secure funding arrangement, which is obviously hugely important. But again, none of that would have been possible without the vision of Rodney Seaborn, and without the hard work that you, the inheritors of his legacy, have done to keep the foundation going and to make it thrive so much. So thank you very much, and from all of us at Brisbane, have a great Christmas and New Year, and we'll hopefully see you in the theatre next year.
I'd like to ask Bruce Spence from the actors. Is Glenn Hazelton here?
No.
Okay. All right. Bruce, would you like to come forward and say a few words? Bruce is president of the Actors Benevolent Fund. Okay.
Being an actor, I don't think I need the microphone. Look, the Actors Benevolent Fund is normally a relatively sleepy little organisation that in normal times we get 2 or 3 applications a month maybe for people who are down on their luck, who might need assistance for operations. They might be sick, they might be infirm, and for all sorts of reasons. But as soon as COVID-19 hit us, we were inundated. We were flooded with requests. And as luck would have it, we got a phone call from SBW, from Peter, asking us if we needed assistance. And that dialogue between us and SBW really saved our lives, and saved the lives of so many actors, writers, directors, backstage crew. The Actors Benevolent Fund don't just represent actors, we represent all those people in the live performing arts. And we were getting hundreds of applications a month, hundreds. And we set up an emergency fund. Amidst that, we had food vouchers for people who were hard up that couldn't put food on the table. We assisted them with rent so that they wouldn't be out on the street. We actually did have people who were living out of their cars at one stage. We had people whose houses had burned down. We've had people recently who were losing their sight, who desperately needed a cataract surgery, etc. And without SB&W, we would not have been able to assist all those people during this pandemic. And we are really, I cannot express our gratitude to SBW for their assistance. And I would think that all those actors out there are very much aware of the assistance that SBW has given us in order to assist them. At the same time, we have had generous donations from people outside of SBW. The Sydney Theatre Company has assisted us, and a number of other companies. The City of Sydney assisted us. We've had in Darling a number of people have assisted us. But without that foundation from SBW, we would have been, our hands would have been pretty well retired. Well, severely limited anyway, put it that way. And I'd really like to thank you, Peter, for what you've done. You've sort of kept alive the cultural foundation, the cultural talent that is still here. And as a result of that, theatre will revive much more quickly. The talent is still out there, and I really am that grateful to you. So I'd just like to thank you very, very much for what you've done.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for that kind words. Now, for the exciting part of the afternoon, is the presentation of the award, and I'm going to ask the President, Gary Simpson, who was President of this foundation, to make the announcement and talk about history. So I'd like to introduce now the President of the foundation, the award fund, is the Gary Simpson. Yes, Gary Simpson, please.
The awards start in a very odd fashion, Rodney and I, back in the last century, were having a lunch at the Australian Club, and we were discussing contemporary playwriting, and we both sort of came to the conclusion it was all very tragic. Rodney said, why can't they write plays which bring joy and happiness to the world? Rodney's favoured wish. So all of a sudden he said, I think I'll start a playwright award. And that's exactly what happened. We sat there and various documents were drawn up and so on, and we fiddled around for a while, and eventually it was all established that we'd be putting 10,000 to some playwright who could put forward the idea of it wasn't only a play, by the way, it wasn't only a play, it was a performance piece. It could be a movie, it could be a dance piece, but something which brought joy to the world was the whole concept ahead of its time, actually. So it was 10,000, and we got going on it. By the time we got to turn of the century, it was sort of all formalised, and we got stuck into it seriously, and at the same time raised the money up to 20,000, which is at that point it was I think the largest prize for developing plays in Australia. It may, I don't know where it sits nowadays. There's money going everywhere in playwriting, so I'm not quite sure where it currently fits, but it's been reasonably successful, I suggest. We did a bit of research, thanks to Carol Martin. Since the year 2000, there have been 22 projects, development projects, and 19 of them have actually got onto the stage, have been performed, which is great. A year or two ago, someone said, we hear about these plays every year, but we never see them. Well, one of the reasons you don't see them is because they're national. A Sydney person wouldn't see something that's happening in Perth or Adelaide or Darwin. So it isn't just a Sydney-centred piece. It emerges from all over the place. There's only a couple of awards which haven't achieved a presentation status. So I think that's very significant to know. The other thing is that, and many of you know this, it is a development award. It is not an award for a play which has been successful. It's an award for a play in which the judges feel that this idea has merit and needs and deserves development. It's a development grant, not a prize for something which has been wonderful. And in most, and as I say, 19 cases, something wonderful has occurred. And I'll just mention a couple of them, for example. The first one, much to my amazement, Anthony Waddington came up with the idea of turning Patrick White's story, The Eye of the Storm, into a movie. I thought that's the craziest I ever heard of. I mean, it was far from a happy thought, The Eye of the Storm. If you read the book, I don't perceive it as being filled with joy and happiness. But never mind, we put in 10,000, and of course, years later, the film emerged, and it was, I think, successful, internationally successful. The peach season, Deborah Oswald's play was at the at the Griffin, at the Stable Centre. Don Reed's Codgers was another one we put 20,000, I think. Anyway, that one was made into a movie. This is a great play. I never did see it. The girl laughs, this girl cries, this girl does nothing at all, by Finnegan Knucklemeyer. That in fact went international, and it began with a grant. And I remember at the stables again, the stables are doing well, Campion Descents by Unholy Ghost, what a wonderful play. And I could go on and on. Kirsty Miller's Orange Thrower, yeah, that appeared in Melbourne. So, in other words, with the idea of bringing forth a play and developing, giving money for the development of it to become something, despite some people believing it never worked, has worked, I can guarantee it. So, good news. What else am I saying? Oh, we also give, which I've never spoken of it before, if there's money left over at the end of the year, we have a little pile in which we make available a playwright support fund for giving grants of up to 5,000, for anyone who can come up with the idea of establishing some sort of workshop to help playwrights develop their art. It could be a seminar, it could be a book, it could be a movie, or they've even, we have in fact given small grants to people who are going to study playwriting as an art form overseas. So I haven't mentioned that before, but it's been a very successful item. Now I come to our great benefactor. This case, not Rodney, oh, it's Rodney Seaborn, of course, but the Seaborn, Broughton and Walford Foundation support the Playwright Award brilliantly, because they handle all the administrative functions of the, without the Seaborn Foundation giving us administrative support, we wouldn't have money to pay the playwrights. We just couldn't afford an administrative staff, and we certainly couldn't afford Carol Martin, who is one of the great executives of the Western world. I have never worked with an administrator who is so efficient, effective and cheerful at all times. I can ask Carol to do something horrendous and she does it within a matter of hours. I don't know how she does it. This very day, I came and said, Carol, I'm going to have trouble with the support fund. We haven't got the documentation. She said, it's in the post. It's there. It's happened. She's done it already. She's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for the foundation support that you give us. Well, we couldn't work without it. And another bit of good news before I announce today's joyous tidings. Someone came up with the idea, I think it was Terry Clark, possibly, came up with the idea of establishing some sort of how do we follow up for all those people who are on the short list? And there's a hell of a short list this year. What do we do with that? Well, one thought was we do play readings in this theatre. I call it a theatre, over there. And so we came up with the idea, or someone's come up with the idea, and it's been embraced by the foundation, as I understand, to do readings of some of the short-listed plays. Now, they won't be just casual events they will be professionally, they will be rehearsed, they will be professional, and I'm happy to say that they'll be in the hands of a pretty well-known and talented director, Arnie Neem. There he is. Arnie Neem is going to choose from the list of plays one that he thinks you blokes would enjoy him having read professionally. It's a great idea. How many can you hold in this play? Peter? 70? So I recommend you keep yourself tuned in to, in fact, one of these play readings which, and you've got an astonishing choice to go by. All right, it's about time. That's the background. Now, what about this year? Okay. The judging panel. Just no one's changed actually. That's me. Dinah Simmons, who used to be a very well-known theatre critic, and she was. I hadn't realised until I had lunch with her yesterday. She was editor of the arts section of the Broughton for 10 years. I didn't know that. Lee Lewis, of course, Queensland Theatre. David Berthold, who is working in a variety of situations, particularly with NIDA. Ken Healy, who was retired as a playwright lecturer at NIDA. And of course Terry Clark, who was practically everything. You name it, he's done it. So this year, last year we had 19 applications. All of a sudden this year we've got 58, huge development. Not only do we get an increase in number, but the interesting thing was the quality was astonishing. We've never had such a high quality of script suggestions put before us. So it caused us a great deal of stress. It was very, very worrying period because they were very hard to pick, really hard. So hard that I've asked the wonderful Carol to put together a list of the 17 shortlisted pieces. We've never had more than 6 or 7. We've got 17 this year. So before you leave, there'll be a sheet given to you of the 17 people who are shortlisted for this year. And I want to give them a public announcement, if I can find a sheet of paper. Here it is. Keep these people in mind, and you may even see it being read. Chris Aronson for a play called Off the Record, Grace Chappell, Never Closer, James Alesi, Cello. That one in particular I would love to see. Justin Fleming, he wants to do a play on Doris Fitton. What a great idea that would be. And the project that he's put forward is definitely a goer. Sophie Glyes, Tell Me Something. Brendan Hogan, a play number 4. Fleur Murphy, Heath. Benjamin Nicol, Croydon. James O'Loughlin, Television. Jordan Shea, I don't know how to say this. Ate Lovey or something?
Ate Lovia.
Is that right? I
believe so.
Brittany Shipway, A Letter from Molly, which is about to appear as part of the ensemble productions this year. Eloise Snape, Pony. Pepetta Tate, Be Calm. Dylan Van Denberg for Gadjang. I don't know how to say that either. Nadjang. He's a prize winner from way back. Cassia Warner for Luna. And Jamaica Zaniti, The World Isn't Made for Them. So on the way out, see, you pick up those names and keep them in your head. So, I suppose you want to know who won this year. That'll be good. The winning entry. I want to read something about it before I tell you who it is. This is from one of our judges. We often write reports of our findings. This is a deeply human, deeply humane play about nothing less than personal worth. It's wise, understanding, unjudgmental, tender, mature, moving, and hopeful. That would thrill Rodney. I didn't, that's me saying that. It's an empathetic ache for life's losers, but an equal hope of and belief in possibility. It loves its characters and does not glamorise them. Now, who wrote this astonishing piece of work? None other than Steve Rogers for the play called The Future is History. In the years we've been judging, we've never had so much unanimous support for a script. It won hands down after a lot of debate, but it won hands down. So, and we have this dear boy. We were trying to find him to let him know what was happening. We couldn't trace him. Carol was driven mad. He never returned phone calls. We discovered, much to our amazement, that the bugger was living in Dubai. So we eventually found him in the desert, or wherever they do that, and he was directing a play there. So unfortunately he's not with us tonight, but we have his daughter, Lily. Check, Lily.
That one's
Yeah, just there it is. Where's the check? There you go. But you want to read something from that
I have a little, yes, thank
okay,
you.
I'll sit down
note
here
from
and
that.
do it.
Thank you. Yes, so I am Lily Rogers, Steve Rogers' daughter, and I'm accepting the award on his behalf today because he is in Dubai at the World Expo over there writing a show that's about to be presented. So he's written this little note for me to read out to say thank you. Firstly, I'm so sorry I'm not there today. Prestigious awards in the playwriting world are few and far between, so to not be there to accept this honour is a real bummer. The Future is History is about a lot of things. If I was writing an essay on it, it would centre around questions concerning individual aspiration and societal inequality. It would probably focus heavily on why, where we live, and how much our parents earn increasingly determines the life choices available to us. But also how education can combat any social divide if people have equal access to it. But really, The Future is History is a play about love. It's about young romantic love, it's about a difficult love with an aging parent, it's about unrequited love. But primarily, it's about the love between a mother and daughter, and the lengths this mother will go to ensure that her daughter has a better life with agency to carve out her future. The play was written based on interviews and research. I'd like to thank Mel Gatfield, the New South Wales Secretary of the Union United Voice, which represents members who work in childcare, home care, as cleaners and hotel workers. I'd like to thank Belvoir Street Theatre for commissioning the work, and the best dramaturg in the country, Louise Goff, who talked to me about the play across 2 hideously interrupted years of COVID. I'd also like to thank all the process workers at the Amazon Fulfillment Centre in Moorebank, New South Wales, who I spent 2 weeks with pre-Christmas in 2019. Finally, I'd like to thank the Seaborn, Broughton and Walford Foundation, all the trustees, Cara Martin, and everyone attending today, with a big shout out to all the other playwrights who entered and were shortlisted, who I stand with in solidarity as a storyteller. Because that's what this award is really about, a celebration of storytelling, live in a room with each other. This play focuses on a world where the people living in it work all night in a warehouse and as cleaners in the day, lives that for most of us remain invisible. With the help of the Rodney Seaborn Playwrights Award, hopefully we can shine a light on them and celebrate them as the heroes that they are. Thank you.
Not only do we give you something to help that play develop, it needs further development. This is a development grant. This will provide the money for that. We also, everyone is on the short list, and there being 17 of them, gets a certificate to say that they were shortlisted. It's very useful for them to be able to say that they've got that. So they're not neglected, as it were. It'd be good. I see some playwright awards give money to the shortlist. We sort of can't afford that, but at least we give them a certificate, which is useful. So, have you got any questions about the way the awards work? Okay, good. See you next year.